Hi, I'm making this video blog to teach you some things about your mind and your memory and your perception. I'm doing it in the video blog format because there's a lot of visual information that will help teach you things. I have a number of videos that I've gotten from different places and interesting clips and little games and illusions and various things like that that will show you a bit how your mind and your memory work. It's very valuable because it'll help you learn to forgive yourself, to forgive others, to understand why people do things, to understand your relationships better. I'm going to show you two videos now in this first blog entry. The first video will be a fun video, and I'm not going to tell you exactly why I'm showing it to you because that'll give it away. I want you to figure it out for yourself. We'll talk about it for a few seconds afterwards. And the second video I will tell you is about false memory. It's by the world's leading expert on false memory, and she's in it, Elizabeth Loftus, and she will show you how she implants false memories. She'll implant a false memory, and you'll get to see that. And you'll start to understand how that could possibly even happen to you. So let's watch the first video.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
But how did you know?
Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away.
That's right, madam.
It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you?
And action.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
It's pretty easy to see what the point of that was, which is that we don't notice everything. That's not a bad thing. Our species is still here, so we can guess that at some point in the past it was beneficial for our ancestors to be able to focus in on a tiger about to eat them and not notice the bunnies hopping around in the bush at the same time. Or, in modern terms, it's valuable to notice that the brake lights in front of us indicate that the car is slamming on their brakes and not be noticing a gardener mowing the lawn on the side of the road. There's many situations where it's very important for us to focus in on what's important and not see the other things. What is interesting and a good takeaway from this is that given any situation, there could be two or more people in the situation, and each of them notice different things. So occasionally, I know I have in my life gotten in disagreements or observed disagreements about people talking about a situation in the past and arguing or discussing what really happened. And it's pretty easy to see from this that it's possible that the two people in the situation notice different things. So they're both right. Their memories are completely accurate. Well, memories are never completely accurate, but their memories are as accurate as they could be, And so they're both right, but of course they're both wrong because they didn't notice everything that's going on, because that's not possible. So there's no point in arguing about something like that, because there's no way that you can know, there's no way that you can be right. And so I try and stay out of discussions like that nowadays. The not noticing things is one thing that can happen, but it's more insidious than that, which is that the memories that you have may actually not be real. They may not have happened. You can go into your brain and remember something that actually didn't happen. Let me read a little short quote by the neuroscientist Oliver Sacks that all comes to my mind when I think about this. He said, "It's startling to realize that some of our most cherished memories may never have happened, or may have happened to someone else. I suspect that many of my enthusiasms and impulses, which seem entirely my own, have arisen from other suggestions which have powerfully influenced me, consciously or unconsciously, and then been forgotten." That's kind of creepy, isn't it? You realize that your memories may not even have happened. And if you understand how memory works, it makes sense that that's possible. Because when you experience an event, you don't store it in one little place where there's the memory of that event and you go get it. What happens is that all the different parts of your brain remember it. So you have an auditory system, a kinesthetic system, a visual system, you have an emotional system, limbic system, and each of those remembers the incident. You have part of your brain called the hippocampus, and it's like an index, and it goes in when you remember things and grabs the pieces from each of those and then reconstructs it. So every time you have a memory, it's reconstructed. It's not just fetched. What's possible, in fact, common, and it happens more than not, is that your hippocampus grabs the wrong things and reconstructs a memory, creates a memory, and it's just not what happened. So I want to show you how easy it is for someone to make a suggestion and create a memory that didn't happen. And I want to show you and who I'm going to have show you this is the world's leading false memory expert. Her name is Elizabeth Loftus, and I have a cool video which I'm going to show you right now.
In her challenge to the idea of repressed memory, Elizabeth Loftus set out to demonstrate experimentally how false memories could be implanted in some people. This came to be known as the lost in the mal technique from the first study that involved trying to plant false childhood memories in 24 participants.
We contacted their mother or their father or an older relative of theirs, and then we went back to the subject and we said, "We've been talking with your mother. We found out some things that happened to you when you were about 5 or 6 years old. And we'd like to see what you can remember about these experiences that your mother told us about."
Participants were given 3 true experiences and a false one that involved being lost in a shopping mall as a 6-year-old.
Your mother told us that you were shopping at the corner shopping mall on a Saturday one time, and you were by the pet store, and all of a sudden you disappeared and you were gone for the longest period of time. And eventually we found you, you were crying, and an elderly woman had rescued you and brought you back to the main office. Do you remember that experience?
The researchers were able to plant false memories in 25% of their participants, a statistically significant figure. And what surprised them was the rich detail of these false memories.
They would start telling us things, details about the appearance of the person who rescued them, other kinds of details that we had never mentioned to them. So that showed that they were putting a lot of sensory detail onto this created memory.
From this investigation, Loftus set out what she thought was the recipe for planting false memories. First, You need the client's trust, and therapists usually had that. Then you suggest something that might have happened and bring in persuasive supporting evidence.
So she would go into therapy with an eating disorder or depression or whatever her problem is, and she'd end up with a therapist who says, everyone I've seen with those problems was sexually abused as a child. I wonder if anything like that happened to you.
So third, you ask clients if they can remember this happening to them. And sometimes they begin to add their own details. They take ownership of the memory.
This was going on really all across North America and then other parts of the world. Families were being destroyed in the process because once people developed these memories, they then accused their family members or other relatives or other former neighbors or former teachers, former anybody.
What Elizabeth Loftus is referring to there in the end is best call it a craze or fad that happened during the 80s and into the early 90s, where many people, and I have in one book that it was over 1 million people, reported having forgotten, repressed sexual abuse as children, and they had accused parents and family members and others, as she said, of perpetrating this abuse, and it turned into a huge nationwide problem. And I'm going to do a whole episode on that, because, or a whole blog entry, because I have these really fun clips with Geraldo in 2020. They especially got into an aspect of it where, according to this theory, many children were being sexually abused in daycare centers, and they were being abused as part of this global multi-generational network of Satanists who were infiltrating daycare centers and doing all kinds of things to children. This fad got huge, as I said, and then it just faded away, and there's no real psychological basis for the idea that people completely forget extremely traumatic experiences. That's not something that is, we believe, happened anymore. Elizabeth Loftus has repeated this experiment in many times in different ways, and some of them are really fun. She got one person and she convinced them that they were lost in Disneyland, and when the parents eventually found them, he was sitting in Bugs Bunny's lap, and he vividly recalled that happening, except Bugs Bunny isn't a Disney character, so it couldn't have happened. If you recall, when she was talking about it, she had more than one memory. So she'd give them a couple of real memories and then one false memory. And then after the whole thing is over, she would ask them to rate, of those memories, which ones they felt were the most real and the ones that were most probable that it happened. And in many cases, the false memory was the one that they believed was the most real, the one that had most likely actually happened. Elizabeth Loftus spends part of her time testifying in first-person witness cases, because first-person testimony turns out to be very bad. And many, many people are put in jail by first-person testimony, which is very easily polluted in the way that Elizabeth Loftus polluted the memory of the person in the video that we just saw. You may think it's not something that can happen to you. So let's check it out. In the next blog entry, I have a memory test that I'd like to give you. So let's check it out.